Today I'm harvesting some ginger from these pouches behind me here. Thought I'd bring you along and give you a bit of a look at how we selected the rhizome, planted it out, maintained it through the season, and ultimately at the end of the video you'd see a nice little tidy harvest if all goes to plan. There we go folks, there's a little hedge of ginger we have on the deck here. Now those three there are the original pouches we started off with. We'll look at them being planted out in a tick. These two pouches on the end here, they were started off using store-bought rhizome that basically started to shoot. We'd had to buy it because we ran out from last season's harvest. I took pity on them, bit of an addict, and I popped them in some pouches just to boost up the amount that we'll get this season. These three pouches here were started with some ginger rhizome that came from a wicking bed down the back that was harvested after the plants had completely died back last winter. We're lucky enough that we can just leave the ginger in the ground here and it will overwinter fine. Now from that harvest I saved 6 sections of ginger that I wanted to plant out into 3 10-gallon or roughly 39-litre pouches. Now, you don't need to save your own ginger, obviously not everyone can do that, but if you do go and buy store-bought ginger, try and find some organic ginger, or maybe even pick some up from a local farmer's market, as those farmers won't spray them with inhibitor. If you're not sure about the ginger you bought, just give it a good wash under some running water, and that should remove the bulk of the sprouting inhibitor. When it comes to size and weight, try and find a section that is roughly around about 50 grams, about 1.5 to 1 3/4 ounces in weight, mainly because that amount of bulk in the ginger itself will give it loads of energy, so it'll get off to a cracking start. Some people also recommend you look for these little growth points and sprout points. I don't think that's necessary when you're growing ginger, mainly because it will shoot when the time is ready, namely when the soil temperature gets over around about 24 degrees Celsius. In fact, you know, it's one of those things that will grow in pretty much, well, most warmer zones, warm temperatures up to, you know, tropical zones around the world. Here in Australia, pretty much any mainland state, and even in the colder areas, you can grow it, but will need some TLC. You folks over in the States, for example, it will grow down to zone 7, but again, it will need some TLC in some of those colder regions. You folks in cooler areas could start off your ginger rhizome in a warm spot inside or in a greenhouse, and once things start to warm up outside, you can pot them out. It'll give you just that nice little head start that might mean a couple of extra 100 grams come harvest time. Now we'll get on to the planting, and as I mentioned before, I did save 6 pieces that ranged in weight from 50 to around about 100 grams in size. The soil mix for the pouches was a pretty basic one. I looked for a premium potting mix. I've got my favourite one here. And to that, I added a slow release organic fertilizer. Another good thing you could add is compost, anything that breaks down slowly to feed up the soil. Also recently I've been adding in some rock dust that's been activated with some microbes, so a good handful of that went into each pouch as well. When it came to planting them out, I popped the rhizomes down roughly around about 40 to 50 mils, which is 1.5 to 2 inches in depth, and then just covered them over. Now it's a good idea, because ginger can get rather large, to try and plant them towards the center of the pouch. As you'll see in a minute here, a lot of the rhizome is actually pushing out on the side of these pouches, so probably would pay to give them a fair bit of room. So as soon as they were planted out, they were moved here to the veranda into a position that only got the morning sun through summer, not the harsh afternoon sun, and given a good water. When it comes to watering them once you've planted them, I don't like to overdo it. I just give them a little bit of a drink, more so the soil than the rhizomes themselves, because they've got enough moisture and energy in there to take off. As soon as I start to see the green sprouts, that's when I start to water the pouch more regularly. And of course, growing ginger in containers, like any plant, means that you need to give them a little bit of extra TLC. So we'll jump back to summer and we'll check out how I maintain these guys. These guys here were placed on the north side of our veranda, because our winter sun comes from the north, just over that way, a bit of an angle, and during the late stages of summer through autumn and into the start of winter, while they're still growing, they're going to get a nice amount of sunlight across there. For you folks in the northern hemisphere, you'd want to position yours in a southerly facing aspect, because that's the angle your winter sun will be coming from, and it'll keep the plants toasty warm. As for maintenance, well, watering, I've got a couple of cans permanently on the deck up here, and I water these guys pretty much, well, every day. During the hottest parts of summer though, I was filling the trays down the bottom just to make sure that they had ample water at all times. So when it comes to feeding these guys, generally if it was in a larger bed, what I would do is move back the mulch and add in a couple of handfuls of compost or maybe some slow release fertilizer and replace the mulch. But because these guys are in containers up here on the deck, I didn't want to have to be carting compost upstairs. I'd recommend you use a fish emulsion to feed up these plants like the Charlie carp. It's jam-packed full of nutrition for the plant, plus it looks after a pest species here in Australia, and we've always found the plants respond really well to it. Rain interrupted play the other day when I wanted to harvest these guys and started filming. It's a good thing that it did, because I just wanted to show you how fast these things tend to die off once the weather gets a little bit cool. We have all these extra little branches that are coming off by themselves, just because the ginger is starting to die back because of the temperature mainly. Before we start harvesting this mature spicy ginger, I thought I'd give you a bit of a heads up. You can take off the younger baby or pink ginger once the plant gets 4 or 5 stalks on it. I wouldn't take off too much though, or you will be robbing energy from the mother plant. I'm going to be doing the same with the ginger we're leaving to overwinter in these pouches, just nipping out to break off a section as we need it. So here we go with pouch number 1. Oh, by the way, these guys went in October last year. So that makes them around about 9 months in the soil. So I'll just try and roll these around a bit. I don't want to get too much soil on the deck itself, because the aquaponics system is directly below us. So after a bit of wriggling, I was able to get the soil out of the pouch. So the reason I'm trying to break the soil off these plants so we can weigh them individually is just to give you some idea of the yield you can expect if you have a crack at growing these yourself in a container. So there we go, that made it a lot easier. Try and untangle these 2 bits. This bit's actually growing through this bit over here. Really is like a bit of a monkey puzzle. So that's one section, and this is the other. Not bad for starting out as this little bit of ginger just in there. Onto the next pouch. So I won't make you sit through the next one, folks, but I will let you know that I think next time I will try and grow them in wicking containers, something with a diameter of more than 60 centimeters or 2 foot, because yeah, these guys are really stretching the limit of the pouches here. And just something interesting on the base here, we've got these little nodules. These little nodules, they don't really taste like ginger. I have tried them in the past. I think they're more a survival tactic of the plant. When things are good, it pops a little bit of energy in these little nodules on the roots, so it's there when needed if times get tough. So this may interest a few of you folks as well, just to show you how deep it grows. It's pretty much around about 1/2 foot or 15 centimeters from the top surface of the soil there to these deep sections of the rhizome. So I have seen people grow them in fairly shallow tubs, but I like to have them in the deeper pouches and containers if I can, because it means more soil, more compost and more nutrients for the plant to have access to, because as you can see, the roots have no problems going right down to the bottom of the pouch. So now all the ginger's out, I'll nip on down the back, chop off the larger roots, give them a bit of a wash, then we'll pop up and have a bit of a weigh-in. So there we go, folks, that's what the ginger looks like all cleaned up. I've still got it separated into the 4 plants, and we'll just set up the scales here. And we'll start off with the ginger from the first pouch. But there we go, not a bad little yield, 939 grams. Now on to plant number 2, which looks a tad bigger and also has the mother rhizome still attached. That's the mother there, and it's attached to this section here that has grown out to here, and then all around it. It's actually given its mum a bit of a hug there, which is very sweet. So we'll pop that lot on there. There we go, we have 1.18 kilograms. And I'd say that mother is round about 90 grams. So yeah, we'll call it 1.09 kilograms. Now on the second root pouch, we have this section here and this section here. And that brings us up to 1.04 kilograms. And I have a feeling that this section here is the mother, so we'll take that off. And that gives us 900 grams for this little harvest here, which is pretty good. Now these mothers, by the way, I generally don't replant these guys out. What I'll do is I'll process these and turn them into other products we'll use in the kitchen, mainly because these younger rhizomes I think have more vigor when you plant them out, but I'll give you a bit of a look at what we do with some of these in a tick. Now on to plant number 4. Plant number 4 is this chunk here. which gives us 930 grams. And I'm fairly sure that this is the mother for this one there. Again, I mean, it looks totally viable. If we pop this in the ground, it probably would take off again, but yeah, I'd just rather use something with a little bit more vigor. Pop it on anyway to give you a bit of an idea, just over a kilogram. So there you go, folks, got to be pretty chuffed with that amount of ginger. Roughly around about 3.8 kilograms all up, which is, cheat sheet, 8.4 pounds. So that brings me to what we're going to do with the majority of this ginger here, including the mothers. Most of it will be run through the food processor and we'll turn it into a ginger paste. And from there, we'll just freeze it in thin slabs in the freezer so we can just break bits off and throw it in meals or drinks as we need it. I've actually got a video that shows 7 different ways that we've saved ginger, either for use in the kitchen or for growing in the next season. So you can check out that in a little link, little pop up at the end here. And there will also be a little link down in the description below. So I would like to thank you all for coming along and checking out yet another ginger growing and harvest video here on our channel. If you can't tell, it is one of my favorite plants to grow, and I dare say I will post some more down the line as well. I will pretty much well leave it there though. I do hope you're all well and happy and your own ginger plots are booming, and I will catch you next video. Cheers folks, have a top one.